Moldova's governing pro-Europe party is on course to win parliamentary elections, a key test of whether the small European nation is moving closer to the EU or Russia. With nearly all the results in, President Maia Sandu's west-leaning Party of Action and Solidarity is still short of an overall majority, but the party is well ahead of the pro-Russia opposition bloc, which wants to pull Moldova away from the European Union and forge closer ties with Moscow. The Prime Minister accuses Russia of spending huge sums of money to disrupt the election. DW's Rosie Burchard is at the headquarters of the ruling party in Moldova's capital, Chisinau, and sent us this update.
The mood is pretty buoyant here at the pro-EU PAS party's election HQ, and that's because they think they have pretty much secured a win. They say Moldova has chosen Europe and that this is a clear victory, they say, against Russian interference. Moldova has accused Moscow of being involved in widespread election meddling. That's something that Russia denies. This election was seen as the most important in Moldova's modern history, a choice of sorts between East and West. Now it looks like Moldova will continue on its path toward joining the EU. It's currently a candidate. And this result, expected result, also puts more pressure on the European Union to pursue its own reforms so it can credibly welcome more members into the club and avoid leaving Moldova and other aspirant EU states left in the West's waiting room.
Radu Marian is a member of parliament for the PAS party. He told us that a win would mark a great day for Europe.
There should be relief in all Europe because peace, progress, democracy is won, and I think we did a great job in fighting the mighty Russian dictatorship. We fought with them, not necessarily with the opposition.
And let's bring in Andrew Danieri. He joins us from the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Centre in Washington, D.C. What do you make of the result that's just coming in?
Well, it's absolutely right that this is a phenomenal result for Moldova's stability today and its right to self-determination, and very likely its European future somewhere down the line. And I think the key thing to remember here is, we talk about all of the Russian interference, meddling, attempted electoral fraud, money laundering, and they've had to do all of this because the proposition that Moscow is putting on the table is far less attractive than that of the European Union, than that of Europe. Moldovans, like anyone, want prosperity, they want peace, they want stability, and they want a right to choose their own lives and how their society is structured. And that was something that Moscow was not willing to countenance, but Moldovans have been able to choose what looks like a big victory for the European party, PAS.
So a break with Russia and a step closer to Europe, but taking into account the economic pain Moldovans are feeling, it sounds like living standards are far from what Europe enjoys.
Well, that's certainly true, and that's true of many member or prospective members before they join the European Union. You think about countries like Poland and Romania before they joined the European Union and the standards of living there. And in Moldova, which again is still on the candidate track, it still has a bit of a ways to go before it reaches full accession, which needs to be approved by all 27 EU member states. Moldova is very similar to all these other countries in terms of their relative economic status. Now, the interesting thing here is that Moldova is a much smaller country than some of its neighbors that have joined the European Union, and hopefully that actually speeds up its track along to its European future because it will cause fewer shocks for current members.
So do you think the PAS party can deliver on what it's promised? You talk about things speeding up. It wants closer European integration, reforms, which have been slow so far.
Well, I think the key point here, and I think we can now say this, is that the PAS party is going to have an absolute majority in parliament. There's 101 seats in the Moldovan parliament, and we're looking at 52 or 53 of those, which would give them kind of a duumvirate, if you will, between President Maia Sandu and a PAS-controlled parliament, which would be able to advance those kinds of reforms that have been slow and have been faced with all kinds of interference from Russia. Of course, we'll see Russia try to claw back influence in Moldova. All of its dirty games will be on the table, but Moldova is in a much better place than it was 24 hours ago.
So you don't think Russia will give up? Plus, the former Soviet Republic has long fluctuated between Russia and the West. So could that continue, especially the interference that you point to?
Well, we've now seen a number of elections that have gone against Moscow in Moldova and towards a European future. President Maia Sandu's victory, the 2021 parliamentary elections, last year's referendum on the EU, and now this 2025 parliamentary election. So that's 4 in a row. Moscow's on a bit of a losing streak in Moldova. So I think I would expect to see more Moldovans, frankly, in the country and in the diaspora, continuing to demand that their representatives move them on this European track. And Russia, again, the proposition they're offering to Moldovans and to others around the world really just isn't that much attractive when you look at the European Union on the other side and all the security and prosperity that future entails.
Andrew Danieri from the Eurasia Centre at the Atlantic Council, thanks for chiming in.
Thank you.